Good evening, everyone. I'm really excited tonight to have Jeffrey Biegel here. You know what? I can't remember how exactly I got introduced to him, but he is an amazing pianist and a composer. Leonard Bernstein actually said of him, he plays fantastic Liszt. He's a splendid musician and a brilliant performer. It doesn't get better than that. These comments launched your 1986 career, Jeffrey, as the recipient of the coveted Julia William Pesek Piano Debut Award. That's say that three times fast. In Lincoln Center for the Performing Arts, Alice Tully Hall. You studied at the Juilliard School with Adele Marcus, herself a pupil of Joseph Levine and Arthur Schnabel. You're currently in the piano faculty of the Brooklyn Conservatory of Music at Brooklyn College, a City University of New York. You were chosen as the first pianist to record for the Steinway Sons recording label. Your Bach On A Steinway debuted number 3 for the Classical Billboard charts, followed by A Steinway Christmas Album, by the way, which I love, reaching number 1 on the Billboard chart. In 1997, you created and performed the first live audio-video recitals on the internet from Steinway Hall in New York, and the recordings preserved on a recording bearing the website name at that time, cyberrecital.com. You commissioned more than 25 works for piano and orchestra by living composers. I'll just list a few. Jake Runstead's Dreams of the Fallen, receiving a Grammy nomination for Best Choral Performance. Jim Stevenson's Piano Concerto. Daniel Pertu's Planet's Odyssey. I'm sorry if I'm getting some of these names wrong. Farad Pupel's The Legend of Bijan and Manajai. Peter Boyer's Rhapsody in Red, White, and Blue. Aldelfa's Hailstorks Concerto No. 3. Christopher Marshall's Thanksgiving Variations. James Lee III's Concerto in A. Also, some notaries that we have here in Connecticut. Kenneth Fuchs, Piano Concerto Spiritualist. David Foster, well-known celebrity here. And you've also worked with people that maybe aren't in the classical space as much, but we recognize you've worked with Josh Groban, Lalo Schifrin, Peter Tork of the Monkees, Keith Emerson of Emerson, Lake and Palmer, Neil Sedaka. So just an incredible array of personalities you've worked with. You performed at the Philadelphia Orchestra, St. Louis, Pittsburgh, Milwaukee, Cincinnati, Tokyo, Hong Kong, Oslo, Bergen, Buffalo, Singapore, Denmark, Ulster, Monte Carlo. It just goes on and on. Istanbul. It's just so. Jeffrey, welcome and thank you so much for this interview. I am so excited in case you haven't figured it out yet.
I am too. I mean, I've read your roster of people that you've interviewed, and I'm really honored to be part of the family.
God, the honor's all mine. Yeah, no, this is really your feather in my cap, sir. Appreciate that. So, I read your whole bio a few times, and I have to confess that when I tried to compress it to 250 words, I asked Chat GPT to help me out. But
so
you
funny.
have a very interesting. Huh?
It's
Good.
interesting. You mentioned Josh Groban. I didn't work with Josh, but I took all the songs. It's an interesting story we'll talk
Oh,
about. I
okay. Yes.
took all the songs from his first recording and some from his second, and created piano solo transcriptions of them because I loved the
Oh,
music so much.
oh, wow.
Um, yeah, and David Foster, of course, is a remarkable friend and musician, and I've done that with his music too. I played music that he wrote recently, even during COVID. He wrote a whole set of piano pieces, and I
Wow.
performed them on my COVID concerts on Saturdays from home.
Oh, no kidding.
And yeah, I mean, he's a remarkable person and
Wow.
really
Yeah.
incredible human being. Yeah.
You did some fun things too. One of which we'll play near the end, which I thought was really clever. You took Un Sospiro, which is a favorite of mine, and wrapped it around in the bleak midwinter, which is just beautiful. And things we won't be able to hear tonight. You did something else very clever. You took the minute waltz and had a choral version of it, which I would love to hear, but we don't have time tonight. And some of the
That's
things
a
that you
feeling.
have composed, we can't play. We don't have the rights to play, which drives me nuts that happens, but those things happen. So
Yeah.
anyway, there's something very interesting. I read your bio that you had a reverse Beethoven effect when you were a kid. You actually, I guess, did not hear. I mean, you only felt vibrations. Tell us more about that. That must have been an incredibly difficult time.
It, well, it wasn't that it was difficult. It may have been frustrating to a child. Um,
Yeah.
all I remember is having difficulty hearing things clearly. There was definite hearing loss.
Wow.
And it, I would say similar to if you would put a cup over your ears and go underwater.
Oh,
That
wow.
was what we heard. And I had surgery at age 3. My parents found a good physician
Mm,
who realized I couldn't hear and I wasn't just lazy not speaking because I wouldn't
yeah.
answer. He would call my name. That's not lazy. And that's not even being belligerent or anything. You couldn't hear. So that opened the world to me a bit. By the time you're three and a half, you're pretty formed. I mean,
Oh my God.
you respond. Who you? Somebody once said, "You are who you are when you're three."
Oh wow. Yeah.
And to the point, I mean, the way you respond to your environment. I
Yeah.
didn't. So to me, it was everything that I couldn't hear were things that I would have to see. I
Yeah.
would always be aware of what was happening behind me by looking. I
Oh
still
wow.
do that. Catch
Yeah.
myself doing it.
Do you
It's a
know, I'm
weak.
just curious, do you know exactly what they did surgically? I'm just wondering if that's something you were aware of what they did.
It was called a surgical myringotomy, which
Oh, that
means
explains it.
and they actually poked the eardrum to release fluid around to make it vibrate. A lot of fluid
Wow.
built in
Wow.
here.
Wow.
Um, and I guess that was it. But I guess the fact that I didn't hear things and respond the way normal people would
Yeah.
put my life pattern in a out of the box, out of the norm
Yeah.
way of doing things, which
Hmm.
may explain why I do that with everything. And I do.
But that must have been an amazing change. Once that operation was over, your whole perception of the world had to be like 10 times more intense or, defined, or it must have been an amazing change for you, right? I would imagine.
No, I remember being in the hospital. I remember
Mm.
where it was. I remember the floor it was on. I remember the room across the nurse's station.
Oh, yeah.
And I must have understood a few words just because I was able to understand something. I must have.
Yeah.
Because when they asked me to go on my stomach or something, I didn't know what they were talking about. I didn't know my back from my stomach or which way to go.
Wow. Wow.
That I remember.
Mm.
But I wasn't a speaker. It took a long time
Yes.
until
Wow.
I acclimated myself to speak. And I never thought much about this until I was in my late 20s.
Yeah.
Because my teacher, I mean, I had different teachers, of course. I ended up with Adele Marcus, who used to say, "You're so inhibited, dear." Well, I didn't know why until I was well into my late 20s, already performing and being interviewed before concerts. And one of them was in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, actually, before the Lancaster Symphony concert.
Oh,
And the writer asked about my childhood, and I told him this. I was born unable to hear, and then I had surgery at
yeah.
age 3, and then started lessons at age 7. And he said, "Whoa, back up."
Right.
And we started talking about it. And I said, I never really gave much thought to this. I never really
Yeah.
talked about it. And it explained a lot.
I bet. Well, you've definitely more than compensated. We're going to play some things of yours in a few minutes. I'm going to just show the world how amazing you've compensated. But I will say, I want to just interject one thing. I did not answer my parents, and they did take me for a hearing test. And sure enough, they discovered I was just ignoring them. So I was being, I guess, belligerent. And so that was a very interesting turn of events. Yeah, I had to pay
What
attention.
you
Anyway,
doing, okay?
I'm going to play a couple of things that you play that just I'm a pianist myself, although not a professional one. But when I watch how you played some of these double note studies, now I guess Adele Marcus was an expert at this double note, and you picked up and this is just phenomenal. So I'm going to, without further ado, let me just show the folks that are watching right now. This is just an amazing rendition. We're going to actually do three short segments of different pieces that just blew me away watching. So put your seatbelt on, folks. This is going to be a ride. I love the way you look so calm. You just you make it look so effortless. I'm watching that going, God, he hasn't broken any fingers yet. It's just now for people who don't know, that's Chopin's Etude number G sharp minor, Opus 25, number 6. But that's just oh my God, that's phenomenal. Did you want to talk a little bit about the technique and learning that, or what it took to make that happen?
I remember learning it when I was 13,
Oh
but
my God.
Adele Marcus was the pupil of Joseph Levine, who was the god of double notes.
Mm,
And she taught them really well. She knew how to teach them, which
mm,
was for the thirds, it was difficult. I don't remember studying the thirds with her. I did other pieces,
mm.
but not a certain way of teaching them because the weaker part of the hand, the fourth and fifth fingers, were the ones you needed to be the strongest part of the hands. And your
Yeah.
thumb and second finger were your strongest part of the hands, and she needed to weaken those out. So she would have us playing super legato on the fourth and fifth fingers and very light and staccato with thumb and two, which would
Oh,
shift the weight to the upper part of the hand and away from the lower part of the hand.
that's
And that's
amazing.
how we did that. And it worked. It just
Wow.
worked over
You know,
time.
that's
It took a long time.
that
Yeah.
is one of the amazing things. I've had probably 20 teachers in my life, and not for long periods of time. But I had one that showed me I was struggling with the left hand of Chopin's Revolutionary Etude, and three or four teachers said, "Well, just keep playing, just keep practicing it." But the reality was that Rami Barniv happened to show me that if I move my wrist in and out of the keyboard, it just powered my hand. I could play all day without any stress. It was just an amazing difference. These little techniques can make all the difference in the world, passed down generation to
Well,
generation. So.
what we tend to forget is the playing surface doesn't end where the sharps begin. We have a lot more in the naturals, the lower keys that go back to the wood. So we can
Mm.
move our hands in and out of the keyboard and have the secret really is the relaxed elbow and wrist. I played a lot for ballet schools when I was younger, and that
Mm.
helped loosen me up tremendously.
Yeah.
Also helped musically because it helped me play more with the sense of dance.
Mm.
And I think that helped a lot, just by osmosis, playing for ballet, watching them help loosen me up. So that's what loosened up the joints.
Now tell me how you got into music in the first place. Were you from a musical family? Was everyone walking around singing and playing concertos in your house, or what was the background for you?
My mother sang a lot. She had a
Mm.
very high bell-like coloratura voice, and she would put records on of
Mm.
crooners, a lot of male vocalists, some of the women singing, and
Yeah.
she would sing along with them. And that was her way of practicing. And she really could have, maybe she would have done something with opera, but I don't think that was her thing.
Yeah.
But she had a beautiful singing voice, but
Mhm.
just she got cold feet at lessons. She heard some singing from other lessons and thought, ay, ay, ay. So she said, I'm not going up those stairs. But
Yeah.
at some point, because whatever the gift was that she had, uh, who knows? I mean, it rubbed off somehow just hearing the singing.
Yeah.
And I had my oldest sister play piano, so I used to imitate what she would do at lessons because I was fascinated by
Huh.
the whole thing.
Yeah.
And that really helped a lot musically.
Mm.
That's what I was exposed to. My grandmother's cousin was a pianist,
Wow.
and I only met her when I was about 9 or 10 years old and played for her. She was a
Mm.
pupil of James Friskin. She went to
Oh.
Juilliard and she went to Columbia. She got a
Oh.
doctorate
Wow.
in musicology and a Schenkerian analysis dissertation for a
Mm.
doctoral study. It was one
Mm.
of those.
Oh,
She could
wow.
analyze. I can't. But she was wonderful. Did a lot of chamber music.
Mm.
And there's another pianist that goes back in the family line who studied with Leopold Godowsky in Vienna.
So there's
So
some
it's
pianists in your
there.
family. Some DNA in there. Yeah, that's great.
I mean, my father loved music,
Hmm.
but he ended up becoming the youngest captain in the New York City Police Department.
Oh,
So,
really?
yeah, but he
Very different.
loved music.
Wow. Now, this
Yeah.
next piece, Liszt Transcendental A2 number 5, is also an incredible showpiece. Love it. Now we probably just go right into the final one, which is the Rachmaninoff. It's a 2 minute piece. But did you want to say anything before I jump into that?
That was another Dr. Flavine specialty.
Oh my God.
I have two shameless plugs. First of all, those were all recorded at the Conservatory of Music at Brooklyn College in the new theater, which is
Oh.
beautiful. They gave permission to do that for tone bass piano,
Mm,
which has exploded. It's a wonderful educational uh, site, and so
mm.
many people have been learning so much through tone bass piano. I think it's wonderful. That was in the early days. That was about 5 years ago. We did that before COVID, and I did a whole series of four double notes, the Chopin, this Liszt,
Mm.
and you're going to play the Rachmaninoff and the Schumann toccata.
Now,
So
Jeffrey, I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with the tone-based piano. What is that? Tone-based? What do you mean?
Tone Based Piano is an organization that has a lot of lesson videos from renowned teachers and pianists
Ah.
on all sorts of topics. It's incredible.
Hmm.
I just did a masterclass in New York for them a few weeks ago, and it's a wonderful website that they have with
Oh,
these
excellent.
videos. Everybody's on there. It's just really terrific.
Wow.
I love being part of it.
Excellent. Okay, we'll have to check that out. So
Yeah.
this is just a little bit more of your amazing work here, just to I'm just blown away.
Those were all done without editing, which made it even
Oh my God.
more frightening, more frightening.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I worked on those a lot. I wanted to get them as clean as I could without having to, oh yeah, go back and do it again, because you can't splice and edit things with the way we did that. It had to be good from start to finish.
Wow,
So,
that's even doubly more impressive. I actually did a CD of some pieces that I wrote, and still I had to have my do about 5 takes before they could piece together all the perfect parts. So
sometimes when you can't, you have to pull it off.
that was phenomenal. So the next thing I'm going to do is play a series of your pieces called Reflections of Various Things, Reflections of Equality, Reflections of Freedom. Tell us about that whole series. That was an interesting project you did.
Well, yeah, I remember when Justice Ginsburg passed away, and I wrote this piece. It was during COVID, and we really didn't have a lot of things to do. I played these
Yeah.
concerts on Saturdays from home, and I started working on this Rhapsody National Initiative project, raising money, getting orchestras together, just for the Peter Boyer Rhapsody in Red, White, and Blue. We ended up, and we have 58 orchestras in all 50 states in that
Wow.
project. But I think it's just because we had a lot of time on my hands to be able to work on it. But
You did some huge projects. In fact, you had one where you had, what, 27 orchestras that were going to play the same thing around the country at once. We'll talk more about that in a little bit. Just
but
phenomenal.
the
Yeah.
so I didn't really know what to do to write this piece, and so I took all her names. I took Ruth Bader Ginsburg, RBG, and her nickname Kiki. They called her Kiki Bader when she was little. K-I-K-I. And I took them and translated them into a musical alphabet. So after you do A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H becomes A, H, I becomes B,
Yeah.
etc.
Yeah.
Scale. So I just wrote down the letter names that would correspond with the letters of her names. And I had to pick and choose which register those notes would be,
Yeah.
going up, going down, higher, lower. But I sang them. I wanted to be able to sing them. I always
Mm.
think you have to be able to sing what you're playing. So
Yes.
I found uh, the patterns that fit the voice. And
Hmm.
then I wrote them down and I started to write music around them. And at
Mm.
one point I put I think the Star Spangled Banner with all the letters of her names in one big measure. And some
Mm.
climaxes, and I used my entire arm, like the gavel, judge's gavel, the whole
Mm.
arm goes down. I did that, I think it's like 2 times in the piece.
Yeah.
And it's a very pretty piece. I ended up playing it with the Dallas Symphony because I was doing another work with them. And one of my former students at Bergen College is Harrison Sheckler, getting his doctorate now in Arizona. He orchestrated all
Mm.
pieces. Beautiful job. So that was the reflection of justice. And the reflection, first, I made the set reflection of freedom, justice, and equality. So for
Mm.
freedom is JFK, and for equality is MLK. And I did the
Amazing.
same thing only with Martin Luther King's "I Have Amazing Grace" in there.
Mm.
With his name, I introduced the hymn after the spiritual after the names. For freedom, I do JFK, and then I introduced America the Beautiful and put his
Oh,
name with that too. And
very
then
nice.
I played that with orchestra, but also they worked solo piano pieces too.
Well, let's do the Justice one first. And this is a beautiful piece that starts out kind of pensive and then gets in some big sound and it goes through a bunch of emotion. It's a beautiful piece. And let me share that with the group now. This is just a wonderful piece. Just a beautiful piece.
I have to thank. There's people to thank for that.
Mm,
The person who I wrote to initially about that was Kim Notami, who's the head of the Dallas Symphony, president. He's now
mm,
president of the LA, so no wonder. Uh, she had such vision, and she gave me a voice.
mm.
It's I'm very grateful for that. And you just see everybody with masks on there. The
Yes,
sound of
yes.
it, because we have Zoom on here, I can't really hear the video the way people will hear it because I
Mm.
don't have the music
Speakers.
setting
Yeah,
on. But,
yeah.
I'm sure it'll be heard. But it just brings back very interesting memories. That was October of 21,
Mm,
and that was just after we've been vaccinated.
yeah,
And we still wore masks. Everybody did testing,
right.
and we just didn't know what was going to happen.
Yeah,
So it was
yeah,
really the unknown. But
yeah.
the music really, I'm not really a composer by trade, but because of everything we were going through, it just triggered the imagination. I felt
Mm,
very soul searchy throughout all
yeah,
that.
yeah. Well, that was very moving, very moving. And do you ever get tired of? I mean, I have to. So the first time I wrote a religious piece and had and the chorus was playing it, and the first time I walked in and heard them, it just there's something about having a whole system of people playing your music. Do you ever get tired of that? That must be an amazing feeling, I imagine, right? Just having the orchestra. Yeah,
I'm very touched by it. I'm very humbled by it. And
yeah,
like
yeah.
now, as we're speaking, four the orchestras and choruses are performing my Hanukkah fantasy this weekend.
Uh-huh.
So wow, yeah, I'm thrilled.
Excellent,
But
excellent.
it's nice because as you get older, you start to think, I'll never forget the story why I created the Peanuts Concerto, the
Oh,
Charles
yes.
Schultz.
Tell us about that. Yeah.
And the reason why I did that, that took a lot of hoops. I had to go through from the family to Peanuts Worldwide LLC in New York, and then to Lee
Wow.
Mendelssohn Film Productions, who owned the rights to all the music by Vince
Oh my
Guaraldi.
God.
Had to get
Yeah.
rights for the images and the names, everything. But I remember reading an interview that was with Charles Schultz, and I remember Craig, the son. I think he said to his son, "Do you think they'll remember me?"
Mhm.
And that. I mean, yes, of course they remember you. I think Peanuts and Charlie Brown will be around way past all our lifetime.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, you know, you, when you see that other people are performing your music, and they're not just doing it once and putting it away. The
Mm.
Hanukkah fantasy gets done every year because it's
Well.
seasonal,
Mm.
and there's something very nice about that. Knowing at least there'll be something that you would leave for people to have to
Legacy.
perform.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but as a musician, you want that. If you are a recreator and you don't compose music, then you want your recordings to be remembered.
Right.
But when you're creating, you want the music to be performed.
Mm. So let's do the others. This one is Martin Luther King. So
Mm.
equality. And again, let me because it is on YouTube, we may have a little bit of a problem here. We'll see what happens in a minute.
Now,
Hang on a second.
this one, for instance,
Yeah.
this is not with a live orchestra. This was created on computer by another one of my former students, Ji
Oh,
Chen. He's
okay.
fabulous. He's doing film scoring and all kinds of things at NYU now. He's brilliant.
And this is
And
all done electronically then.
yeah, well, he took my piano solo recording,
Uh-huh. Okay.
the equality and freedom, and put them into the computer, and he added Harrison Sheckler's orchestration around it.
Wow.
He timed it. It was a lot of work. The poor kid, I made him crazy. But in the end, he said, "Thank you. You just kept raising my bar higher and higher, and my work ethic and level of expectation and standard to another level." Because he heard what he had originally done to the finished product. He's like, "Wow, what a
Yeah.
difference!"
And what I love
So,
about this too, it shows right in the beginning how you assign the letters. And I just
yeah,
love
I know.
that the music contains the name of these people in it, and it's so musical. I mean, some you would wonder, can you do this and be musical? And it is, it works, and here it is.
Harrison did the videos.
Very nice.
Mm.
I didn't realize, by the way, that just the music is lovely. I didn't realize that they actually had uh, I Have a Dream emblazoned on the bottom of that Esplanade in front of that. And I also
Yeah.
noticed this time, I watched it twice, but I noticed this time one of his ties had the Liberty scales on it, which I'd never noticed before. But the music is just
Mhm.
absolutely lovely. It's amazing how good the electronics are. You almost can forget that that's all electronic. It's incredible.
No, he did it. It's Prologix or some samples he used. He did a fabulous job, and that
Yeah.
wasn't easy. But I haven't heard it in a while, and it's powerful. It's a powerful moment to write
Very
even.
goosebumps, literally. And what I love is the way Amazing Grace just kind of appeared in the middle of it seamlessly. It wasn't an obvious thing at first. I'd be like, "Oh my God, this Amazing Grace!" Just yeah,
Well,
really.
and after I do the his names, I bring that boom, 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 boom because of the marches that he did for freedom.
Mm,
And I
yeah.
wanted that to be the core of the piece, and then have
Hmm.
all the music be. I wanted it to be a big freedom march
Yeah.
with the
Yeah.
speech. Yeah.
Now tell us about the JFK Reflections of Freedom.
And I ended up writing that last, but it ended up being the first. And so I didn't know what to do with the order. And I didn't want to end the whole set big. I remember asking actually David Foster about it because he's so good with that. And
Hmm.
I said, what should the order be? Should I end this set louder or soft? He wrote one word, soft.
Hmm.
One word. He's a man a few words on
Yeah.
text.
Yeah.
I laughed. He comes back with boom. I laugh. I go, oh gosh, I wish I could do that. I'm not gifted that way. But and so I did freedom first, and then justice, and then equality to end. In a way, you just heard this piece end. Uh, I didn't know what to do for this third piece, and my wife said, "Why don't you do it on JFK?"
Hmm.
So I did, and I found all the musical equivalent notes and started to write it, and then I just heard "America the Beautiful," and I put it all together. So that ends the first thing ends triumphant, which we to the more reflective pieces, second and third.
Yeah.
And that was done in summer of 22, 21.
Bravo. Wow. Wow. Ah, that takes me back. When I was a kid, JFK was the guy. So that was takes me back. Um,
Oh, yeah. That's the whole point.
yeah, you've done some amazing things also in a big way. I want to ask you a little bit about this project where you had literally 27 orchestras commissioned to play at the same time, right? I guess, right? The
No,
how did that work?
it was all separate performances, but
Okay.
I wanted to create a project to celebrate the millennium
Mm,
and to get a piece of music played by as many orchestras as possible. So
hmm
I created the Millennium Project, Millennium Fantasy by Ellen Taves Willick. I asked her because her music was played by many orchestras, and now of course they make a big thing. Like, well, you have to incorporate a lot more music using all the different principles of sharing the wealth of minorities and male,
mm,
female, this and that. But I did that. In 1998, I came up with this project, and I didn't even think twice about who.
mm. Yeah,
And and she was, and Ellen would say, I don't want people to perform my music because I'm a woman composer, and I don't want them not to perform my music because I'm a
right,
woman composer.
right.
But she's done three projects for me, and she's terrific, and she's going strong.
Mm,
Um, so it was a leap of faith, and I had to raise money from the ground up with foundations and donors and all the orchestras. So I had a sliding budget based on the budget size of the orchestra to determine how
wow.
much we paid for it. And that was considered one of the largest consortiums of orchestras put together at the time. And then I came up with the idea to do the first 50 state project in America. And that was born in November 2000. And it was with Charles Strauss, who wrote Bye Bye Birdie and Annie and all the great shows. And he was
Mm,
a pupil of Aaron Copland and Nadia Boulanger and Arthur Berger. And he was a
mm.
classical composer until he wrote pop music like Born Too Late. And then he wrote a lot of different music that was on the popular vein. And so I started that project. I raised the money for that. And it was the first project where the orchestras did not have to pay into it as well.
Hmm.
And then 9/11 happened. I had Boston Pops and Honolulu Symphony set up, and I stopped it there. Because with
Yeah.
9/11, I decided not to do it, which
Right.
then I resurrected during COVID to do the Rhapsody in Red, White, and Blue project. So that ended up being the first 50 state project without
Mm,
the buy-in from the orchestras. But
mhm.
the concept of 50 states was born in November 2000. I
Wow.
just couldn't see it through. Just didn't, heart wasn't in that. It
Well,
wasn't the
didn't
right thing.
wasn't it premiered later with Keith Lockhart and the Boston Pops, or was that a different thing?
That was the premiere. It was June of
Premiere
2002. Yes.
2002.
He
Yeah,
was,
yeah.
he was incredible. Oh my gosh. I met him at like 3 o'clock the day of the concert. We went through the concerto and he knew it his whole life. And then we just premiered it a few hours later
Wow.
after one rehearsal. I said to him, this is remarkable, what you did with the score. I mean,
Mm.
to take a brand new piece and just make it like you've done it your whole life. I was very impressed by that. It was really terrific.
Let's talk about the Rhapsody in Red, White, and Blue. This is with Peter Boyer, and so is this something you commissioned with him? Is that how it worked?
Well, I actually it started before all this pandemic. In about 2017, after I had recorded Kenneth Fuchs' concerto in London with the London Symphony,
Mm.
I decided, I have to do something about Rhapsody in Blue. It's going to come up also. I know it's 7 years away, but you know, I figure something out. So I let time slide for a couple of years. And by late 2019, that's when I started to put the thinking cap on and I started to ask some composers.
Mm.
And they said, no, that's not my thing. I was thinking of doing a tribute to Gershwin's Rhapsody in Blue, Centennial in 24. And uh, they said no. And then I was able to start getting some grants together. And I decided on the Rhapsody in Red, White, and Blue as a title because I couldn't figure out what to do that could tip the hat to Gershwin but be its own entity. And that was
Mm.
it. That's the title. I just looked at the American flag. I said, oh, well, yeah. And I did some research, and the only music really that I found uh, about the flag was Antonin Dvorak's American Cantata
Mm.
for chorus and orchestra. And that was in the late 1890s. And so that didn't get played very often, but that was it. And so that became the piece. And then I approached Peter Boyer. And at first he said no.
Oh, really?
I said, yeah, he said no. He goes, I just don't want to be compared to Gershwin. It's
That's
really
tough. Yeah.
a tough thing to pull off.
Oh my
I said,
God.
well, you know what? We compare Beethoven to Schubert. I mean, what's the difference? I said, you're going to be writing your own piece. And he still was a little frightened off of it. And I said, I'm going to tell you a story about George Gershwin and Maurice Ravel. And when George Gershwin went to Paris, he wanted to study with Maurice Ravel.
Really?
And learn the finer art of orchestration, which he had already done so well with. And Maurice Ravel said to him, I understand, Mr. Gershwin, you are very successful in writing your music. May I ask you, how much money did you make last year doing this? And when Gershwin told him how much money he made, Maurice Ravel says to him, I should be studying with you, I think. So, but his advice to Gershwin was, better you should be a first-rate George Gershwin rather than a second-rate Maurice Ravel.
Interesting.
So be authentic, be your own person. So I said to Peter, first-rate Boyer, not a second-rate Gershwin.
Great.
And I think that made sense. And it took him a little time. He says, I'll do it. And I left him alone. I did the business end. I raised money. I started bringing orchestras in. And the more I started bringing orchestras in, I realized that I was basically resurrecting the 50-state project that I put on a shelf 20 years earlier.
Wow.
It just started to grow and grow. And it was during COVID, and orchestras had hope. They had faith, and they were hoping to be able to perform again.
Yeah.
So I wanted this to be the vehicle for that. And so it turned out being a project that, because there are so many orchestras, I'm bookending it. On one end was the premiere of the Utah Symphony in June of 2023. And that was the start. We had the recording with the London Symphony that came out in February of 24, which coincided with the centennial of the Rhapsody in Blue.
Oh, wow.
And it'll bookend on the other end in 26 with the America at 250. So, and may even go into 27, depending on scheduling, because, orchestras have a certain number of concerts per season. So,
well, this is wonderful.
Yeah, thank you.
This is a video that has a combination of interview and the music in it. So this is goes on for about 4 minutes. It's a wonderful little video. So let's show this now. Rhapsody in Red, White, and Blue.
We are recording my new work called Rhapsody in Red, White, and Blue with soloist Jeffrey Biegel and the London Symphony Orchestra at Air Studios, Lyndhurst Hall. And this will be released in conjunction with the centennial of George Gershwin's Rhapsody in Blue, which is in February 2024.
I've always had a very strong relationship with the music of George Gershwin, and I grew up playing Rhapsody in Blue in all its guises, from the simplest to the most complex. But then I realized that the centennial was coming up, and how can we celebrate the centennial? And I felt with a new piece of music by a living composer.
So my first reaction was, he's crazy, because how can I, as an American composer, attempt to write a piece that is going to invite comparisons to a unique piece of music? And so I really kind of turned him down initially, but he convinced me that he thought that I was the right composer to undertake this challenge. So I wanted to find a way to acknowledge that this was a Gershwin companion piece, tip my hat to George in some way, and there's one fairly substantial section of the piece which is a kind of bluesy scherzo. That is where we get this quasi-Gershwin music.
Peter has a wonderful way of writing music that is very appealing to people everywhere, but in particular, the American landscape.
The rhythms felt very natural to play, and it was just great fun, actually. I think there was really great writing for all of the instruments. It certainly kept us busy for the few hours that we had.
In less than 4 hours, we were able to record this entire piece, and it sounds like it's been around for 100 years, like Rhapsody in Blue. It's fabulous.
This was the first time today that I conducted this piece. There was a certain amount of pressure involved with all of that, but it all went extremely well, and I think part of that is because Jeffrey is just so committed to the music. There's no big ego, there's no airs, there's no pretension. We just did it.
It's been an honor to do this project with the London Symphony.
Knowing that we're putting down the definitive version is really special.
You know, there's so much planning that goes into something like this, so much preparation, and then the moment finally arrives, and I have to try to both work hard and focus and do my job on the podium, but also I think it's so important to try to enjoy that moment.
Working with the London Symphony was quite incredible.
It's my third time recording with them, and each one has felt like a very special experience.
Wow. That's
You know,
great.
Peter's son put that video together with him. He did a beautiful job. Really
Very
beautiful.
nice. Oh, very nice. Wow.
You know, you look back on things. It's different when you're in the moment, but when you see it reflectively, it's has a different impact.
Mm.
You know, I don't always like to look back. I like to go forward. Which,
Well, by the way, speaking of other things you've done going forward, you've done some interesting things with your different sons. With Evan, I'm not sure I'm saying. At 16, he had a debut as a percussion soloist in a piece, a world premiere, and actually in 2013. And then you worked with Craig on a co-composition called "The World in Our Hands." So your sons are also in the composing world too, or in the music world, evidently.
not really. Craig is a surgeon.
Oh, he is.
Evan,
Okay.
Evan is a percussionist still. Plays for
Wow.
the lovely orchestra, the South Shore Symphony in Long Island, as a volunteer orchestra. They're fabulous. He's an attorney.
Oh my God. Wow.
But those were special moments. Yeah, Evan and I did the Claude Bowling Suite for flute and jazz piano with Hubert Laws
Hmm.
on flute, and we also did Ellen Tafe Swillick's Shadows up in Boston with my friend Kevin Rhodes conducting the Pro Monte Chamber Orchestra.
Wonderful.
So yeah,
That's great that you brought them
Yeah.
in. You had them involved. That's wonderful. And they're so talented in their other professions. That's awesome. Um,
The World in Our Hands was the result of 9/11.
Say again now?
The World in Our Hands with Craig was a result of 9/11. Came home
Oh.
from school a few weeks after 9/11, and he started playing something on the piano. I said, "What is that?" So I thought something he learned in school, that was singing in the chorus or something. He made up this music. And I wrote
Wow.
it, and said, I think we have something here. So I wrote the verses around his music, which became the chorus main section. And then
That's
I added
wonderful.
a choir out of it. They played it. And, we did it for when we had moved to another town. So when he was in fifth grade, the chorus sang it.
Oh my God. That must have been great collaborating with your son.
It was amazing. Yeah, fifth grade chorus.
Oh
I
my
played
God.
it.
Wow.
Very moving. 9/11, you know, that was the effect on the kids was very powerful.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah. Yeah. Unbelievable. Well, thank you for that. I want to play your version of Auld Lang Syne, with your arrangement of that. Oh, and before I do that, you meant talking about Rhapsody in Blue. You evidently played a version with missing parts. Now, I didn't even know there were missing parts to the Rhapsody in Blue. You want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, there were measures in there that were from original manuscripts and the piano rolls. And it was actually Dr. Alicia Zizzo who excavated the archives and Library of Congress, and she found measures. There were manuscripts, and she put together a solo version that I've played. But
That's
then when
wonderful.
it came down to playing it, I performed it with orchestra, with Boston Pop, American Symphony, and then finally the Gershwin Initiative through the University of Michigan. They put together, they're doing all of the Gershwin music and
Wow.
original versions, and Rhapsody in Blue is one of them. So I recorded it with the Adrian Symphony with Bruce Keithlin conducting. It was through COVID, we rescheduled and finally got it to happen. And we
Wow.
recorded it, and released it as a single recording, Rhapsody in Blue 1924 Critical Edition.
Hmm.
And so all those missing measures, mostly in the piano parts, and the ending is a little different.
Really?
Some of the directives that he put in there, like instead of getting gradually slower, he writes poco a poco accelerando, getting faster. Some of the notes are a little different. So it's a different piece. I learned a lot doing that, and just the style of the Rhapsody in Blue. I stripped myself of everything I ever heard of it before and went back
Wow.
to the original piano rolls and the scores, and realized what he was just doing was writing music that reflected New York and America at the time, with the Charleston and the dances and the ethnic dances like Freilich and Krasowski, and
Hmm.
another thing, reflecting Beethoven and Debussy, which he does, which kind of blew my mind when I heard it. When dun 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 dee, dun 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 dee, dun 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 dee, dun dun. It's Beethoven's Fourth Piano Concerto. Bum 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 bee dum bum bum dee dun
Oh my
dun
God.
dun.
I never thought of that.
Yeah, I mean,
Wow.
it's whoa. Even the beginning when it starts, the scale by the clarinetist going up to B flat major. 3 years before he wrote that, Prokofiev played his Third Piano Concerto in New York, and I would imagine Gershwin was there because he went to all the important concerts, and that would have been one of them. And in the second movement, the piano entry is Prokofiev's concerto with the shaking notes, the trill, and the scale going up to B flat major. And I
No
was like,
kidding.
oh, dang, dang. So, yeah, Debussy too. This quote from Debussy and Gershwin's concerto in F, the beginning is like the Sweet Bergamasque prelude of Debussy. So there are correlations. If you really go digging, you could find more probably. But I do think it was very organic and very authentic. And it's
Yeah.
just because it was melodies, was put into the computer chips in the brain, and they just
Yeah.
came a little different. I mean, that's
Right.
something that Ellen Zwillig said once. Everything you hear has been written before. It's
Mm.
meaning we all feed off of what came before. That's what creates the evolution of music.
Yeah. Interesting. Very
There you are.
interesting.
That was the Rhapsody story.
Now tell us about Auld Lang Syne, because you do something very fun with this. It's just I love this arrangement, and you did a whole Steinway Christmas album, so this is really beautiful.
Yeah, what happened with Steinway folks, it was Eric Wagner, I believe. He ran archive music, and then he was running the Steinway, and they were starting a new label. And
Mm.
they said, you did a recording for Koch Records, the Classical Carols, by Carolyn Taylor, which is that in Suspiro in the Bleak Midwinter is by Carolyn Taylor. She did all
Oh,
the fusions. And they said, would you like to do the first Steinway recording as a Christmas album? And I actually said, no. I said, that would come later. I said, I think we need to show off the Steinway in a much different way.
yeah,
And I chose Bach on a Steinway to really show off the Steinway, to be
yeah,
able to sound Baroque, but as a piano, and all the articulations and all the ornaments, and just make it sound improvisational using the scores of Bach, but just going off on that a little, but not like it's me, but it's Bach. What would Bach have done on Steinway? And so
yeah.
that was the first one. And a year after, I said, let's do the Christmas. So Steinway Christmas album was kind of fun because I was able to do my own arrangements of like David Foster's My Grown Up Christmas List and Ann Hampton Calloway's Christmas Lullaby and the
Mm.
Christmas Song and other things. Carolyn Taylor wrote some brand new, fresh arrangements for that.
Mm.
My friend Andrew Gentile arranged Sleigh Ride, which opens the disc. Dana Perna sent me Percy Granger's piece. And I invited people through social media, through Facebook actually, to send music that they had done for
Oh, wow.
Christmas. So I did a bunch of them, and not everything made the cut because of timing. but there were some people through friends on social media that got into the recording, and I wanted it close with Old Lang Syne. And so what happened was I wrote an arrangement, but I realized there wasn't enough. It was one page. So what's interesting is that the page I wrote ended up being the second page, the second section of the piece, and I wrote the first section after I wrote the second section, and I put it
Interesting.
together.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
it was a little backwards composition, but it became the final track of the
It
Steinway
works. It works.
album.
This is
Yeah.
wonderful. I think people will really enjoy this. In fact, I got to get this album. This is very nice. Very nice. Very nice. It's perfect for the season. And I can't thank you enough for your time. There's so many things I wanted to play. I wanted to play your
No.
Rachmaninoff Prelude in G, Opus 32.5. That's one I played. You played it so beautifully. I wanted to play the in the Bleak Midwinter in Suspiro. Now, that's actually not arranged by you then. Is that true? But you play it.
Carolyn Taylor.
Yeah, but
You know,
beautiful. I just, oh my
it's
God, what
still
a
getting-
clever arrangement. Very
just
nice.
she's brilliant. I asked her, how'd you write all those classical carols? Like they're brilliant pieces. You can
Yeah,
buy the sheet.
yeah.
She said her mother had passed away and she just felt very divinely guided.
Mm.
And things I'm still getting, I get emails all the time from people that want to, they purchase Old Lang Syne through my website. They get the sheet music and I send it to them personally.
Oh,
And
wow.
some of the other arrangements I do that way through the
Mm.
website. Yeah, it's and the Old Lang Syne is also for chorus and piano, and I played it also piano and orchestra. Again, Andy Gentile, who did the Sleigh Ride, he arranged Old Lang Syne for piano and orchestra. I played it once
Mm.
with the Cape Symphony in Cape Cod. Uh, so music's out there for people to enjoy, to play, to listen to.
We just scratched the surface, and I encourage people to go to your website. And also, this interview will be on Spotify in a couple of weeks. It'll be on A Composer's Corner, of course, and it'll be on YouTube. So it'll be out there. And I'm sure you can send that and do whatever you want with it as well. But thank you so much, Jeffrey. This has been a wonderful time. and I really have had a wonderful time the last 2 weeks just listening to all your music and preparing for this great interview. Thank you for your time, and I know you're out in
I
Seattle
appreciate
working on a whole
it.
nother production right now, so you're always doing something,
Thank
which is
you.
great. So
Thank
thank you for
you.
giving me the time for
Thank
this.
you. It's my pleasure. Yeah, we're out here doing this, and the next season's James Lee the Third's Concerto in A,
Mm.
tribute to the Gershwin Concerto in F Centennial. Melissa Manchester who wrote Awake, yeah, piano and orchestra. And I'm actually working on a new project for 26, 27 that I can't talk about yet. But
Oh
I
wow.
want to thank you for this because, I've done so many new pieces, and I don't want people, like as Charles Schultz said, I hope they don't forget me. I don't want people to forget the Bach and Mozart and
Yes.
Chopin and Beethoven and the standard works,
Yeah, and you've
because that's
done like
really
all of certain, you've the collections of all of them, which is impressive. Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
really my roots. And it all
Mm.
those I needed in order to do the other thing. But
Yes.
I just love it all, and thank you for helping share some of those important parts of my musical life.
My pleasure. Jeffrey, thank you so much. You have a great night and good luck on your performances coming up. And I look forward to
Thank you.
keeping an eye out for you.
Thank you again for this. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Have a great night.
You too.
Take care.
Bye.